everybody, I am Liz, and today is the day I talk about the books I finished in November. Now, I didn't read as many books as I typically do. As we all know, I've been in a reading slump. I've been really struggling with my reading. And November definitely shows that trend. So, we'll get right in. There's only 2 books on this list because that is it. I've only finished 2 books in November. The first book I finished, which was Pan's Labyrinth, The Labyrinth of the Faun by Guillermo del Toro and Cornelia Funke. I read this to try to get out of my reading slump, listened to the audio, just really wanted to transport myself in my favorite telling of my favorite movie of all time, and this did not disappoint at all. There's illustrations which go so well with the movie, and it expands upon all of the characters, gives them backstories and snippets from their mindset and what they're thinking in context to what happens in the movie that you don't get in the movie. It also expands upon the lore and the myths behind the movie that really put everything together. And so I was so happy I read this. I fell in love with it. As I loved the movie, I fell in love with the story even more. And so I was so happy I read this. I gave it a 5 out of 5. For those of you who don't know what this book is about or the movie, it's a fairy tale set in the Spanish Civil War in Spain, and our main character Ophelia, I believe she's 8 or 11 years old, so she's a little girl, and she gets whisked away from her life in the city as her mom remarries a commander in the military of Spain, and they have to go to this forest location as he is fighting the resistance. And she believes in fairy tales, she seeks fairy tales to escape, and she gets whisked away as the faun of this forest has been looking for the princess of the underworld, and he believes Ophelia is that princess, and so he sets her on these tasks to prove herself so that she can rejoin her parents in the underworld, and it's just so fantastic. I love it so much. And then the last book, the second book I finished in November, is Nexus by Sasha Ellsberg and Lindsay Cummings. This is the conclusion of the Andromeda saga, the second and final book, the first book, Zenith. And though I enjoyed the first book, Zenith, this book was more of a struggle for me. I had a more difficult time with a lot of the sentence and story structure in the book. I'm really grateful that I listened to the audiobook because it did help, but there were still things that just didn't quite mesh. I didn't love Dex in the first book, and I feel like he grew more on me in this book, which was great, but there was a lot of cliched things in the story, and also the high stakes weren't as high stakes for me because I didn't feel like this book was very true to putting me on the edge of my seat. And with what happens in this book, that is a little bit of a disappointment. I do appreciate where the story took off, the overall plot, and the conclusion of the story. I just felt like it was missing something in it. And so I'm giving it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. So I'm hoping December brings out a better reading month. I know for a fact I'm not going to get to 75 books, which was my Goodreads goal for the year. As I am currently at 58 books that I've read this year, I still feel like that's a great number, and I know that I'll get further. I'll read more books in December, although we're already more than a week in, and I haven't yet finished a book. But I am trying. The issue is I feel like last month all I wanted to do was listen to audiobooks, but this month I don't want to listen to audiobooks at all. I want to physically read a book, but finding the time and energy to physically read a book has been a challenge. So I'm still currently reading Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. This is when an angel and a demon team up to stop the apocalypse. And Hunting Prince Dracula by Carrie Maniscalco. This is the second book in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, where our main character, Audrey Rose, goes to the lovely Romania or Transylvania and tries to learn more about forensic science and mortuary science to be a better forensic examiner. And people start dying, obviously. And their deaths are reminiscent of either vampires or vampire victims. And with it being in Romania, with the lore of vampires and Dracula so rampant, Audrey Rose is determined to tease out the myth from the actual true cause of the murders and find who's responsible for killing people. And it's very interesting so far. Like I said, I'm about halfway in both of these stories, and I'm really trying to read them, and I'm hoping to stick with it. Books I haven't told you guys yet that I've started, and that is because I've started them pretty recently, is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. And this one, I got the series last month with a super big bargain. I only paid shipping for the whole trilogy, and I really wanted to try it out because I've heard such great things. A lot of people either really like this series or don't like it, and I'm hoping I like it. But I binge read the first 4 chapters at work one night, and I'm pretty excited. I'm hopeful that I can continue on this book and read it and enjoy it. Caraval is basically about this magical circus called Caraval, and our main characters, Scarlett and Tella, they're sisters. They've always dreamed about going to Caraval, and finally their chance happens. They get tickets to Caraval, and Tella's determined to go. Scarlett really wants to, but she's also betrothed and she doesn't want to mess up this marriage arrangement. So things are a little messy, but they end up in Caraval and Tella goes missing and Scarlett needs to find her. The last book I'm currently reading, or at least attempting to, is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is book 1 of the Ultimate Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy tome that I have here by Douglas Adams. I have always wanted to read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy because I love the movie, I love the premise, it just sounds so fascinating, and so I'm finally trying to do it, listening to the audiobook, which is so great. However, like I said, I'm struggling with listening to audiobooks, so fingers crossed that I manage to get through it before the month is up. So there we have it. We have 4 books I'm currently reading, 2 books I finished in November. Hopefully I finish this year, finish this decade off with a bang, because I still can't believe that it's almost 2020. It's almost the end of the year, almost the start of a new year. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please leave me comments down below about any of these books I've mentioned. Have you read them? What did you think about them? And also, what was your favorite book of November? Or are you really enjoying the book you're currently reading? Please let me know, and don't forget daily check-ins. How are you doing today? I am pushing through some difficult things with my cat Marley. She's struggling with her teeth and gums, and so I am working really rigorously with my vet to make her feel better, but it is stressing me out. So in the meantime, I'll be reading, hanging out, relaxing, and trying to put my head in a better space. Until next time, remember that I love you, and I hope to see your faces again. Bye!